Hello and welcome to another episode of the Edufuturists podcast. We are excited to have just me and Ben in the studio and be discussing and reviewing what's been over the last six or so weeks, Ben. Or 6 or so episodes, should I say, rather than weeks in terms of recording it. But there's been some good ones, hasn't there, mate?
There has some really good ones, some deep conversations, as obviously we're in the prep phase for Uprising 2025. A lot of the themes that we're talking about are obviously reflected in that trends booklet, but some great conversations. And interestingly, some of the people that we've had the privilege of in the studio are, are really pushing the boat out, aren't they, in some of the stuff that they're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, not going into too much, wait till the trends booklet comes out before, and we present it at the Uprising before we kind of give too much away. But I think, some of those bits in regards to really just redefinition and doing things in a very, very different way. And that links into Ben Summers done it in terms of recess. I think a very, very different style and a new age of education and learning compared to what we would see in England as traditional. So, rather than going to the four walls of a building and your choices only come in later on and being very, very selective and restricted choice, I think this gives a bit more agency and definitely some more autonomy to parents, but more so to the learners that they can kind of guide themselves through. And I love the algorithm and the selective based on classmates, based on what everybody else is watching, kind of a Netflix approach to education and that community. Just doing some wonderful stuff and another offshoot of synthesis.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
no.
we had Synthesis on, didn't we? In terms of Josh Dawn, way back in 2019, was it? 2019, 2020? It's at the Uprising. It's a while ago. It's a good few years ago, and he spoke with us around how synthesis came to be out of Elon Musk's SpaceX program and education there, and then obviously how it's evolved, and even how synthesis is evolving now into becoming like an AI maths tutor, which is interesting. But then obviously we had Anna Fabrega who came from there. Alan Tang used to work with synthesis, and obviously Ben in that space. And interestingly, the model, if you haven't listened back to episode 287, that was called the Pick and Mix Marketplace with Ben Summers. And in that conversation, we talked about his model of recess. And I think one of the phrases we used is that what we've been talking about in terms of the future education going to be pick and mix. And we were talking about suites and this idea that you can pick and choose which bits you want, depending on, and giving a little bit more agency and authority to parents and to young people in terms of agency. They're building a marketplace that would do that. So recess is designed to be a place where you can pay what you want to pay to determine what the direction of your education is. And I love that. I love that idea of how it's based on child's interests and aspirations. But I was reading something earlier today, actually, just randomly, and it was an article from the Brookings Institute from 2012. And their phrase was this: it said, let the education dollars follow the child. Obviously, Ben Summers is in the US, and that's what they're doing in terms of that devolved funding for education. And as a policy, I'm not saying that we need to follow the policy of what's happening in the US in terms of the Department for Education at all. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying, giving parents more choice and also making sure that we don't just have a maintenance of a bricks and mortar classroom, because it has to be that way and it doesn't fit for everybody, does it? So I think that was a really good conversation, and it's kind of backed up. Even 13 years ago that was written, 2012, when they were talking about it then, and it's starting to evolve in the US, but it's not necessarily moved anywhere else.
Yeah, and absolutely. And even if we left every single child that is attending or has strong attendance or good attendance in England, if we just left them alone and only focused on a different approach for alternative provision, for SMEH, so social health and those kind of things in regards to dropout, but also just those is it about 1.8 million based on most recent stats of non-attenders and children that won't sit GCSE. So it's not about actually those that are doing well and thinking about, oh, we need to rewrite it for everybody. It's actually, like you say, that pick and mix and that choice for those individuals. That why is it that there's a 1.8 million or millions of children in England that are not attending school and not getting an education, and we're just going, well, you know what, it's their fault. Well, give them a choice, and these opportunities, I think, are really, really going to come to the forefront now, and I think will change the lives of millions of kids.
Yeah, and that's what this is about, really. It's about realizing that we've done a one size fits all for that Taylor style economic model of education, and it's done with. And interestingly, tied to that, in terms of that curriculum reform and other things that sit there, there was episode 288 was, we called that the connected leader, and that was with wonderful people, Lucy and Jonathan Coy from Head Teacher Chat. And I think it really ties into it, because we're saying that with a one size fits all model for young people and learners, we're saying the same for teachers and for leaders as well. That doesn't work. We've got to treat these people as individuals, as humans. They're not just disposable assets. They're not collateral damage. And we talked heavily around the pressure of being a leader in education. And their solution then tied into a connection. And Recess is about connection. It's about connecting to your passions. It's about connecting around the world. And interestingly, the connected leader was really important in that conversation.
Lovely segue, Ben, into connecting leaders. A very different, the second one to review. It's a really different podcast, and I think that's something I love about our podcast. To float our own boat and sing our own praises. Actually, the diversity of people that we get on, to have the conversation with Head Teacher Chat, and actually just the simple approach of their why they started out, both education leaders. One was ahead, and then went into supporting many different schools in regards to improvements, and they set up a really, really popular community of head teachers that ultimately just support each other with simple things from safeguarding all the way to innovation, basically just every facet of education as a leader that you might come across in such a broad brush. Um, and 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 people say, well, is it needed? Well, look how many, they've got tens and tens of thousands in their community across all the different social media. And they're just the validated ones. I think so many educators, and when I it's come to the forefront, and I'm a bit more aware of it. When you speak to those leaders, everybody's in it. It's one of those kind of communities that sits behind the scenes, and yeah, really, really exceptional work. And I think, and also really interested to hear from Jonathan in regards to actually over the periods of time, the language of the challenges has potentially changed, but actually it comes round that actually a lot of the challenges are still there from what they were when they were first set up the group and community.
And that's the point, is it's about community. They're building a community, and it's changed and evolved. And what it was once, and obviously they were very heavily influential and still are on X, but then have moved out of that into their own spaces and other spaces as well. And I think that's really important, because it's knowing that you're not an island, that you're not a person who has to do it isolated. And we talked about this in a recent essay, didn't we, when we were talking about Ofsted, that whole challenge to perform and that isolated nature of that performance takes its toll on people and educators and education leaders. And we don't need to harp on about the statistics around teachers leaving. We don't necessarily need to make a big song and dance about whether we're going to have a shortage and this and that and the other. But realistically, those at the top of the tree, so to speak, the head teachers, the principals, the CEOs, they get a rough ride, and it's hard work. I'm very close, as chair of governors. I'm really close to a head teacher at the primary school that we're at, and I know that he's got a young child, he's got a wife at home, but he works crazy hours, and we have to protect him from that. In fact, we as governors have made it part of our policy that we try and find a way to give him more time at home, for example. So yeah, to the way that Jonathan and Lucy are doing, I think he's significant in that space. Yeah, important.
Yeah, and I think we first met them at the Canberra event. They attended ours, and I think it was a connection, a community. We're trying to, a lot of our community is in their community and vice versa. I think we're not trying to create the community, the only thing that tackles challenges and tries to improve education. I think we are two individuals that are passionate about all communities, and I think there's so many out there, Ben, that we're part of, that we continue to do, and we champion others. And Jonathan and Lucy are two individuals that we would champion, and their space is a wonderful one. So yeah, if you haven't joined and you're a head teacher or in leadership and you're not part of that community, definitely reach out and go back to the episode, have a listen, see whether it's for you and everything else. But it links into previous ones, doesn't it, Joe? The stuff that you Joe in the Middle East, in terms of some of the communities being set up there, that ultimately it's just for too long education has been created in isolation, reinventing wheels that have already existed, um, and and yeah, I think it's just about breaking down those silos and actually not competing with each other. Yes, there's always going to be a competitive edge because that's some people's nature, but ultimately, league tables only are good to serve our country and government compared to somebody else. It's not really a benchmark of actually how we should be judging education as a whole.
Absolutely not. And I think we have talked about cooperation, working together, that collaborative nature. When league tables are one measure of the success of a school, recruitment is another measure. Student satisfaction is another measure. Grades are another. Like they're just measures, aren't they? And we've said a few times on the podcast, harping back to what Mark House said in a conversation I had with him, Mark House from RM, talking about we treasure what we measure in education rather than measuring what we treasure, what really matters, and how do we measure that, as opposed to just feeling that we get obsessed by numbers and statistics and tables. And I think what Lucy and Jonathan are trying to do is realise that we live in a system where the goals and the statistics and the performance tables are a real thing and we can't ignore them. But they're not the only thing, and how do we work together? And interestingly, I'm not just doing that weird segue into the next one, but I feel like it does make. So obviously we had Jamie Smith on the podcast, episode 289, and Jamie's obviously written a new book around responsibility and about responsible AI. But I do think there's a link here in the sense that there's a lot of schools that will have real good access to EdTech, to AI tools, to the best LLMs and the best generative AI products, and then there'll be some that won't. And it's not a level playing field, and it's not fair to even suggest it's a level playing field. And we've got to work harder to make it more level and to create that equity. But I know Jamie was talking heavily around being responsible with what we have, and so what the power that we have in our hands, and about responsibility. And I don't think he quite quoted Spider-Man or Winston Churchill, whoever said it, but. And I know you like this one, don't you, Steve? With great power comes great responsibility. But I think that's the key thing in terms of leadership in education. Now that ties into the conversation around AI, because every single one of us as leaders, wherever we are, and whatever level of influence we have in education, the AI as the genie that's out of the bottle, we need to really think about responsible use of this and considered use of it. I see so many conversations, and you'll be saying, Steve, in the work that you do on a day-to-day, as well as in the Edufuturist stuff, loads and loads of people talking about this new tool, this shiny new thing, and these new AI tools. And there's a lot of people that bang on about how AI is the best thing since sliced bread. But if we don't do it in a considered and responsible way, then we're gonna create bigger gaps, not close the gaps that these leaders are supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I think the cynic in me at times is are some of these people that promote and are pushing some of these agendas, are they chasing change, or are they chasing medals and a plaque on the wall for themselves? Like, what is, been the first of something great? Is it, it's always a nice achievement and the most licenses and all those kind of things. I get it, if that's a considered and measured approach. But actually, so many people are just chasing a measure for themselves rather than a measured improvement for learners. Like, you can do all of these different things, but with anything, it becomes an expensive paperweight, or with the danger of AI, not just an expensive paperweight, a dangerous paperweight. That actually, you don't put the paperweight down. It sits there, but actually, you could be letting loads of different stuff in and out. So yeah, I think Jamie's approach links into the Rose Locking conversation and all of those kind of great things where what does considered look like? What does responsible look like? The definition of those words. And ultimately, that doesn't mean risk averse. That doesn't mean turn off and access to nothing. It means use it, but use it with guardrails. Use it with support. Use it with training. Use it with greater understanding and research from the leaders to ensure that those decisions that have been made aren't always perfect, but at least have been considered and discussed in terms of what are the unintended consequences of anything. Because you might set out with the best intentions in the world, but actually some intended consequences are worse than the ones that you knew all along.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And there's a thing there around the challenge that we have as educators and leaders in the space to not just think about, oh, this is an efficient way to use, and is this going to create efficiency? It's going to save us time, and it's going to be more effective, and we're going to have lovely, nice graphics, and we're going to be able to write really great things, and we're going to use our AI for data analytics, and it's going to be great, and it's going to save. And wonderful people we've had on the podcast who are talking about how many hours a week it saves educators. Great. And as we've said multiple times before, that's well good that we're saving time. I love that we're saving teachers time. Teachers are time poor. They are hammered for the money that they get. And we'll say this till the cows come home. But you saving them 5 hours a week is one thing. What you then expect of those 5 hours that they save is the key bit. And the responsible leader in the space will see there's a correlation between workload for staff, burnout, staff leaving, a lack of retention, all the things that go with it. We've literally got in our hands a tool that can create time. We said if you could give teachers anything, what would they ask for? They'd ask for more time and a bit more money probably. Well, we're giving them time. What do we do with it? Do we want to give them an extra lesson on their timetable? Do we want to expect them to do another meeting, another expectation, or could we just be brave and go, do you know what? Those 5 hours you've saved, great, well done for taking the time to learn how to use AI. Well done for taking the time to develop efficiencies. Have some more time with your family, or do some upskilling if you want to do, or go home early. Whatever it looks like, the responsible leader, I think they're the ones that people are going to want to work for, not those that say, oh no, you're clocking out too early, or we'll give them an extra. It's just we need to rethink that, don't we?
So as you know, we've been working with Clever for a number of years now as a partner for our Uprising events and also for our pre-Bet Pack event this year. We're pleased to be continuing the partnership, and we're really excited in helping Clever gather insights from educators to inform their Classroom of the Future report.
Yeah, Clever's conducting this survey to better understand which EdTech tools and features educators believe most effectively support student learning in 2025 and beyond. Insights from this will directly inform product development, integrations, and professional development offerings from Clever and hopefully other EdTech vendors that see this. So by hearing from teachers like you about their top priorities, their biggest challenges, and views that are on top of mind issues like AI, data privacy, and all the things that go with that, Clever aiming to spotlight what's truly working in classrooms today. So if you want to get involved, we'd love you to. Please complete this survey before it closes on May the 29th, 2025. It takes 3 to 5 minutes, and your responses are kept anonymous. The link is in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. And linking into the next one, we went on a series of book reviews, and Al, wonderful individual. If you've ever met Al Kingsley, such a kind man, such an honest guy. But the book is about honesty, and the bit that I love about the book is actually unpicking and thinking about some of those questions that haven't been, those awkward questions that haven't been asked. and Al seems to be a serial author now. It's just looking at the list of people we've had on. I think probably in the last 3 months, I'm the only person that's been on the podcast, or even you, Ben, that hasn't written a book recently. So that's probably trying to tell me something. But yeah, Al's book in regards to really starting to think about those trends, those themes, and ultimately some of those challenges that have just been left, some of those itches that should have been scratched a long time ago. And yeah, the book and the conversation was a really, really positive one. And Al was always at his season best. And I think he pulled out the wine at some point as well. I always remember that bit.
Yeah,
And I was like, is that port or is that wine? Um, and
well,
yeah, I
the
remind you
best
everybody,
people always.
it wasn't 9 a.m. in the morning, everybody, just to call it out when we were recording. But yeah, wine time
But
is
our
always a
best
good one.
guests do. Jim Knight always used to have a
Yeah,
drink with him.
yeah.
David Price always had a drink. Like maybe that's the thing. I think what's him called? Tim Brighouse had a drink, a glass of wine. Like maybe that's the thing. If you're going to be a guest on the podcast, find a time where you can have a glass of wine, or a beer, or a whiskey, or whatever else you typically.
Or
Yeah,
maybe we're
love
just
it.
interviewing those people that just go, you know what? I've got to this part of my career where I just don't give a fuck, and I'll just have a wine if I want a wine. So, like, if you look at that list, these are people that like generally done unbelievable stuff in their field, really well respected, renowned, but also just like I'm me, and that's just the way it is. And I think that's what comes across really well in Al's book, that it's
Yeah,
him
yeah.
and his approach. And if people think they're going to avoid those questions, then he's going to ask them.
Yeah, it keeps asking them, and the elephant is in the room, and that's the subtitle, isn't it? Obviously, it's asking the awkward questions, and it's about elephants in the room. I've got it on my desk here, actually, the book. And elephants in a room, you can't avoid, but people try to. It's like you skirt around them. That's the whole point of the idiom, isn't it? And Al doesn't. But I think the bit that I really like about the conversation with Al is that. He asked those questions, but in a way that only probably Al could. If we were asking them questions, we'd probably be pointing a finger. Well, me anyway. I'd be telling people they were wrong, and I'd be this and that and the other. Whereas Al just is a little bit like provocative, but not in a way that makes people feel like they're not doing their job, and you know what I mean. So I think Al does that really, really well, and it's asking things like about, are we teaching students the right stuff? Well, that's a big question. We're talking about big existential questions, and if we're asking those type of questions, then we are then we're doing good things, because they're the questions we should be asking. I don't know if we are asking them. I don't know if they're the questions that get asked on the curriculum assessment review that's currently underway in the UK. Probably not. It's that's probably like, should we have an A star or just A star? Do we need a grade 10 rather than just a grade 9? It's probably like the rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Possibly, I don't know if that's a fair comment, but Al does that in a beautiful way, and I think it's lovely, because obviously, again, Al's book is asking those questions in a kind way, and you did one without me being here, obviously with Steve Baker, and his approach was a very very different approach to um, talking about Ofsted, right? So he's talking his book Outstanding, and Steve, you will dig into this, but his book Outstanding is a satirical look, isn't it, about a story, humorous look at about Ofsted and inspection.
Yeah, inspection thrown in with a bumbling set of TV crew, a leader that's just loses control, an Ofsted inspector that's all about ego. Apart from the TV crew, sounds just like a normal inspection, maybe at times. But yeah, it's really really interesting. And for those people who know Steve Baker, not the first book that Steve Baker has written, and his first one was all on behaviour. So actually, it was good to kind of cross over some of those lines in regards to that book and his previous stuff and everything else, and just really, really honest and actually some humour, some bits that you see, and I got to ask him some questions, going, "Is this based on experience? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? How does it relate to this and everything else?" And to be fair, it's the first time I read. I don't read fiction. I don't read stuff like that. I wouldn't normally read a comedy. It's not really something that I would read, but actually, I really enjoyed it, and it was great because it was a conversation that was very different to the books and the conversation we've had, because it was based on a make believe city or town and village, and a school and a leadership and the teachers and the support workers and the learners and the TV crew. Yeah, it's just a really, really good way. But actually, if you are a leader or you've been in education, it's definitely worth a read, because when I was reading, I was like, even though it was based in a fictitious school, link back to some of my FE days when I was going through Ofsted and things. I was like, absolutely, there'd be some teacher that'd just be like, I'm not doing this. I'm just doing what I've always done. And they were the ones who just would throw you under a bus no matter what planning you'd done and everything else. They were just like, nah, I'm going rogue. I don't need this. I know how good I am. And yeah, that's always a challenge in it as a leader, that you've just got to trust in your team. Sometimes they'll not always come out smelling of roses, I guess.
No, and I think when I listen back to it, that the conversation around control and compliance in that space, and the need for us, or the seeming need for education to be about control, and inspectors controlling, leaders controlling to make sure that everybody does what they need to do, teachers controlling their classes and the behaviour management that sits in there, students having some control or lack of control. And I wrote something recently around how we've created a compliance factories, and education has essentially become about doing as you're told, not asking questions. Schools about answering questions, not about asking questions. And I think the nature of what Steve's talked about there in a satirical, humorous way is actually is that genuine experience, isn't it? It's the fact that control is what makes the world go round. It seems to be, and I don't like it, but the education world seems to be absolutely brewed on control. We control what children wear. We control what time they come. We control what time they go to the next lesson. We control their curriculum and think that this is the only curriculum they need to know. We control their holidays and when they can go on holiday and family. And you just think, is this really the society that we're trying to build? I'm not sure. Maybe I'm naive in suggesting.
We all go into work or whatever careers we go into, and get really annoyed when people micromanage us. But we've created control, and people who try and control it and then go, yeah, but why is that person so controlling? Why are they micromanaging? I'm like, because that's what you've developed over a period of time in that individual, that you remove curiosity and autonomy and all these different things that really, that I believe are the strengths in leadership. And we create individuals that think that is the best practice, and a blueprint for, because they've seen it in leaders at school and so on and so on. And yeah, it's bonkers, isn't it? Control. But
yeah, and compliance that comes with that's the thing about control is its twin, or its alter is compliance. It's like we have to just be quiet and do as we're told, and people control it, but we have to be compliant and controlled. And I know that we can't have chaos. I'm not saying we should have just, and we've mentioned this before, that agency with guardrails. Like, that's the point of the AI. We want, when we're talking about AI, when we're talking about technology, but when we're talking about schools, we want agency within guardrails. It's not like everything is on the table, but something more needs to be on the table. So that brings us to the last one in this segment, and we try and do a portion of these reviews. So we do a few together. So number 6 is one that we recorded with. It was a brilliant conversation with Professor Mike Sharples, who talked about learning as a conversation, and that it very much mirrors a lot of the themes there, that education and didactic direct instruction is probably, that was his takeaway, wasn't it? If you haven't listened to it, do go back to listen to that. But one of his takeaways of the things he'd love to get rid of is about direct instruction, and that we need to move to a point like that dialogic, that conversational learning. That's just what we probably all want. But because of the control and compliance thing that we've just mentioned, we don't always have the freedom to be able to do that conversational learning, do we?
No, and I think the evolution of of Mike starting the podcast and talking about what the Open University has been existing since the 60s, I think. I can't remember the exact date, but 60s or 70s. And you look at it and you go, it's a heck of a long time to have developed and to have tailored, not personal, but a more of a tailored approach to education. And you think about online learning and you think about the Open University, that was what you attributed. But actually, those things didn't really exist even in its infancy, and have evolved over a period of time to what you see now and what is normality. Like Joe talked about, Cyclops, I think was the name of the platform that they built. The Open University built to host, to deliver live webinars and do all this other stuff. And you're thinking, when was that? I think it was like the 70s or the early 80s. And you think, oh my days! Like, so they were doing this before the internet became a thing, and you're just like, how bonkers! Like, even just think about it now, you just think, how, how would that even be a thing? The great minds that have gone into the developing of that, and I know that they've had a great relationship and a long-standing relationship with the BBC in terms of some of that stuff, because it used to be phone conversations and meetings. It used to be watching stuff on TV. It used, and you look back and you go, who even came up with that concept? But actually, it's a great success story. It's a great English, British success story, because ultimately, and I know we're not the only country to do it, but as a beacon of learning, it gives people from diverse backgrounds a real opportunity to study it in a way that meets them. The Martini model, Ben, any place, anytime, anywhere, potentially.
Yeah, Steve loves a bit of Martini model.
Absolutely do, mate. It's everywhere all over where I'm currently working. That stance is everywhere. That everything's been created under that, guys. Again,
this is that thing you were talking. Do you know we're talking about whiskey and wine? It's Martini. You need to start drinking Martini.
I'll drink a Martini. We'll do one when I go to Ibiza next, and we'll get on a call and I'll have a Martini or something. But just. And you look at the evolution of it, but also look at the work that they're doing and the research and the intent that they put into it. So Mike talks about actually his exploration over a decade or at least 5 years of AI and its impact potentially and all these different things. And you look and you think, it's not a flash in the pan. Let's just do this and see what everybody else is doing it. It's a really considered, measured, thought through, responsible use of online learning and AI and all those things matched together, I think, which was a great conversation to have.
Totally agree. And we've had some good conversations over this last period of time. In fact, for many of you who are listening to this and have got to this point, who've been with us a long time, or you might have just started with us, we're coming towards that magic 300 number. Now we do have this little laugh and joke between us that we've definitely done more than 300 episodes, but on the main Edufuturist podcast, we're this is episode 293. So the next time we do a review, it will be episode 300, which is just mental that people have been with us as long as they have. We've had some great conversations. We love doing this, and we've got into different job roles. We've got different stages of life with families and whatever else, and yet this is a staple. Like it's one of those things that we've continued doing, and so yeah. Big Review Part 9 is done, and Big Review Part 10 will be episode 300, Steve.
What is that? That's like, even if you think about, we've had breaks and we've had different guises and lots of different, not break, but like, we used to not do any for the summer, didn't we? For periods of time, we used to think, oh, is anybody going to listen over Christmas? We go our way through now because we just love it so much that we just want to record as many as we can. But even if we were to do, that's 6 years of recordings, and you go, it don't sound like a lot, 300. It's a heck of a lot.
Yeah. It is, and like I said, we have breaks, and we've got more in there. I was going back through the back catalogue and looking at some of the really old ones and trying to pull them all together, and we're going to be doing some for the 300 one. I want to pull together a whole host of content that sits in that space. But yeah, watch your space on that. It's been cool, but like I said, these 6 have been good, and I think the ones that we've got coming up, we've got some exciting people in. I don't want to give too much away, but there are some big hitters from the other side of the pond as well, not just in the UK. And we've got some people that are doing some incredible stuff all around the world. What I will say is that we don't often do this, But if there are people that are that you think we should be speaking to them, or the Edufuturists should be speaking to, we've had a few really good connectors in our work, and we would love if you've got an opportunity to do that. Go over to the Edufuturists website. There is a space on there for suggest a guest, and you can suggest who that might be. Do some intros to us. Connect with us on LinkedIn or on X as well, or Instagram, and we'll pick that up. But if you know people that we should be speaking to who are pushing the envelope, the needle for the future education, we'd love to. Mate, it's been a good conversation. It's 35 minutes, nice little summary of what we do. Just as we're coming in to land on that 300 mark, it's been a good chat. It's a good chat, mate.
And there's an event to come pretty
soon.
soon as well, mate. So yeah, it's all exciting times. Don't think there'll be many tickets left, if any. I think we're pretty much there now, but if there is, when you listen to this, go to Edufuturist Uprising, Edufuturist/Uprising, Ben? Is that right?
Edufuturist.com/uprising.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said, just in a very different way, an incorrect way. But yeah, head over there, get www.15ws.edufuturist.com/uprising, and head there, yeah, go get them. And we're looking forward to having these conversations in person. Our annual awards is an opportunity for me and Ben to meet with people that listen to us on a weekly basis, which still blows our mind. So we're excited for the community to get together. And if you're listening to this for the first time or the 50th time, make sure you get your ticket if you haven't done already, because it's going to be an absolute blast in Manchester. So yeah, have a good one, everybody.
Yeah. Take care. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Shaping the next generation. Dancing to the rhythm, catching every beat. Together we embrace the futures at our feet. The futures at our